let's see how this bad boy works. Okay. I think I'm live. Let's give it a couple moments here. Awesome. If you are joining me live, please let me know in the comments. Say hello. Okay. I think we're live, right? Let me know that you're here. We're gonna talk about my post that I just wrote. Participates. Let's see here. It does say that I'm here live, so more options. Let's go. Copy. I will go post this. Okay. We are just going to dive into it. Hi. I'm Stefania. If you don't know, you probably know if you're here. I'm trying a new live streaming method, so bear with me. Make sure you're commenting along if anything lands or resonates. Basically, I felt the need to come on and actually teach publicly on this particular topic because it's one thing to be someone who feels like, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur and like life keeps getting me down or whatever. But it's another thing to actually own the parts of you that are actually really scared that you're not going to make it, that this isn't the journey for you, that this isn't the right path for you. And so I just want to make sure that I think this is working. Okay. We're just going to dive into it. Actually, no, you know what? I want to see some people here, and I've never done live this way. So we're going to just give it a couple moments. Fuck it. Okay. So the status that I wrote, and verbatim, I'll read it to you, is if you want to become self-employed, your higher self needs to consider you employable. And I got to be honest, this one kind of sucks. It sucks because no one is really guiding people. Well, there are several people guiding you through this process, but it's not widely talked about, right? So there's a whole subsect of people who believe that becoming an entrepreneur is a method of having the perfect business plan or following this particular method or whatever it actually might be. And I firmly believe that that's not the case. I think becoming an entrepreneur is whether or not you'd hire yourself. And I didn't become fully self-employed until I was willing to acknowledge all of the ways that I was not willing to hire myself. I was not someone that my highest self wanted to hire. Okay. And it really took me looking at all my patterns that showed up in my employment history. Now, keep in mind that in the external world, I am a deeply employable person. I am someone who people want working for them. It's always been the case about who I am. It's got a lot to do with my work ethic, and it's got a lot to do with my personality. I've always been very good at sales. There's a lot about me that is externally employable. The difference is that when you're looking at your higher self, it needs to be, are you internally employable? And I want to separate the difference between you guys so you can kind of see it for yourself, but I'm going to use myself as the example. Okay. So growing up, having a job was very important. That's how you made money. The idea of being self-employed really was an idea. My dad had done a stint as a self-employed contractor. And when I looked at him, there was this way that like it was backbreaking work. And I was like, ooh, that's terrifying. And so I would look at my dad as an entrepreneur and be like, oh, he has to break his back to do that. And then I would look at the other entrepreneurs that I knew, and they all came from like wealthy backgrounds. And I was like, okay, so you either have to break your back or be very into nepotism. And I was like, how? Maybe I don't want to be self-employed. And the truth is if you're meant to be an entrepreneur, it's going to be the thing that follows you throughout your life. But when I was in high school, I really had it wired that there's only certain ways that you could be self-employed. And I didn't like any of those. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to work my way up the ladder in whatever job I do. So my first job was at a movie theater. And I was very good at stuffing popcorn. Like such a weird thing to be good at, but I was very good at it because I knew that if I did very well, I would get a promotion and I would get a manager role. And I kind of knew the way that you would get off the ladder in the movie theater. And so I did all the things, but it came to a point where I was like, wait, do I actually want that for myself? Do I want to move up the ladder? Cineplex. And I didn't. And so here I was building all of these skills, all of these talents at stuffing popcorn, getting upsells and all of these different things. And I didn't want to use them. And so I got super lethargic and bored and disappointed and didn't even want to be there. And so then all of a sudden, the way that I showed up at work, even though I was one of the, at the time, like best front house people, I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I decided I was going to leave that job and I was going to work for a better place. So then after that, I left and I went to a friend of mine, her mom ran a restaurant. And I was like, cool, better pay. This is awesome. Better hours. It allows me still to be a teenager in high school, but still get like money. I loved that job. It had the best chocolate cake. I worked for the greatest people. And to this day, I still respect everyone that I worked for there. And I think from there, it was just like, I was going into my senior year and I was like, you know what? I actually need to be making more money. But the job that I had didn't have the opportunity for me to really rapidly grow. So it was a steakhouse. I was a hostess. I wasn't quite ready to be a server yet. And so I was like in this stuck place where I was like, fuck, like I like this job, but I need more. And I don't have the skill set or the experience to be a server yet. So how do I get there? And rather than fight that job, which to be honest, a lot of people would do, they'd sit there, get more and more resentful and then fight for the role. Rather than fight them for the role, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go get experience in a place that's hiring for something that'll give me experience. So I ended up moving over to the whole hotel industry and working in banquets. Now, again, I got really good at my job. I also hated my boss. I would work really, really hard during the times that I was there. But then it was also this place of, fuck, I don't get to have a life. I was working from 7 p.m. to 3 o'clock in the morning on my weekends. I ended up being the DD for everyone because I was getting off work when everyone was ready to go home from parties, right? And so it was like towards the end of high school and I said, fuck it. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to worry about it. I went down to university in Vancouver and I was unemployed for a little bit, but not for very long. After that, I started to see a lot of my employment patterns. And my employment patterns were a lot of like overwork until I'm distressed. Get really good at the job until I'm bored. And that boredom would take over and actually start to create a lot of resentment, because it wasn't boredom of like everything's fine. It was like, I'm bored because I'm so good at this job and I actually don't want to be here anymore. Like there's no place for me to grow because I don't want any of the opportunities that are available. And so that boredom would then evolve into this place of resentment. And then that resentment would actually make me the most toxic employee possible. Like I was not, once I got bored, I was so mean. And I would just go to my job. I would just do the job and I would go the fuck home. Like I did not like what my day-to-day was. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the people I was surrounded by. Even if individually I liked them, there was just this way that I would show up like I'm just here to do the fucking work and I'm here to go home. And that's fine. That's a fine way to be. But when you're self-employed, that is all you have. You don't get to just go to work and go home because your work is you. And so there was ways that my patterns that I was developing in my employment, even though I was deeply employable, highly skilled, I worked hard. My resumes always were just chef's kiss. I was externally employable, but internally my higher self is like, I am never hiring this bitch. I'm never doing it. Because when my higher self looked at who I was in the context of working for other people, this is what she saw. She is going to constantly create challenges for herself so she's never bored, making our life more difficult. She is going to have a lot of skills and never actually use them to the fullest extent. She'll actually go seek more education, but never put it in practice. And that's just for the first 4 jobs that I had in my life. Now we get into me having more of a career. I worked as an accounting clerk for an auto group. I worked as a financial controller for an international startup. I've been an accountant, bookkeeper for over 90 different businesses. So now I'm in the world of finance, right? Well, the patterns that I got from that were that people don't care about money. So I have to over care about it. I have to care about it more than anybody else. So my higher self looked at that and she's like, wow, like, I would love to hire you as my accountant, but like you are lacking all of the other practical skills required for us to run a business. My higher self already knows all the positions that we would need to fill on our own to be self-employed. Because to be self-employed, you not only have to be the CEO, you have to be the accountant and financial officer. You have to be the COO and run the operations of your business. You have to be the marketing director. And while I had my finances down, she's like, oh yeah, I would definitely hire you to run our money, but you can't communicate what it is that you do. We're shit. Marketing is my weakest area. Okay, but like, can I run systems and contracts? Oh yeah, I can do the operations and systems. That is not a problem. But actually getting into service, actually serving my clients was not something I was skilled at. It was something I consistently fought. And in fact, it wasn't only until this last like year where I was like, wait a minute. My higher self will only hire me to be self-employed if I let go of everything that I used to have in terms of my patterns as being an employee. And I think people forget about this. When you move from being an employee for someone else to being self-employed, you don't go from being employee to boss. You go from employee to being your own employee. And so your shitty behavior that shows up in your like external employer world is going to show up in yours. And the cost isn't borne on your employer. It's borne on you. So consider you're late for work. You're late for a client call. Well, all of a sudden your client's like, well, fuck you. If I show up and you don't show up, well, I'm going to go find somebody else who will show up. So now your income is actually impacted. Let's say you're super resentful. Well, you just hired on a new client, but now your pattern of being a resentful employee who has to service that client doesn't actually serve that client. Now your client goes, you no longer have that income. Every pattern that you have as an employee will show up when you are employing you. And the resistance to becoming self-employed is because your higher self already knows this. and is waiting for you to either move, clear, eradicate those patterns, and step into the version of you that they are actually going to hire. I did not become fully self-employed until I became the version of me that my higher self could hire. And the version of me that my higher self could hire was the one who was willing to talk about her work, was the one who was willing to take payments, the one who was willing to create contracts, the one who was willing to have boundaries, the one who wouldn't just to take on a client because they have money, but because they're right for the journey. See, my internal employability is not the same as the external world. The external world cares about, can you do the job? Internally, my higher self is all about having reverence for everything in my life. And unfortunately, my higher self, prior to me becoming self-employed, my higher self would look at me and say, this bitch is going to run us to the ground. And that's exactly what happened. So when I left my role as a financial controller for an international startup, I accidentally became self-employed. And I say that because I didn't have any intention of creating a business, but people wanted to hire me because I had these external skills that made me quite employable. And so I freelanced a bunch of operational things. And it was 8 months of doing that. 6 months, actually. Sorry, 6 months of me freelance operations consulting, where I got so physically ill. My body began to revolt against me because I had been taking on clients that I didn't want to be working for. I had been doing work that I didn't want to be doing. I hadn't been charging enough. I'd allowed other people to determine what I was allowed to do or not allowed to do. I ignored my nutrition. I ignored the physical requirements of my body. I did all of these things. And my higher self was like, oh my God, we need to fire her. We need to fire her because she is not ready for this journey. She is not ready to be the woman she needs to be for us to rely solely on her for income. We need to fire her. Because at the same time of me being my own sales consultant, I physically couldn't get on a call. So my higher self was like, oh my God, we cannot sustain this. We cannot force ourselves to be overworked, to get sick, and then still expect that version of us to be able to make sales. It's not sustainable. And see, that's the difference between your higher self and the external world and how they determine employability. Employability to the external world is just, do you have the skills? Employability to your higher self is this person going to sustain us? Is this person going to help us thrive? Or are they going to completely run us to the ground, drive us into the wall, overwork us until we're burnt out? Are they going to make sure that we have enough money to have our needs met? Or are they going to overspend, waste our time, prove their egos, etc.? That's what our higher self is trying to figure out. And so every time we don't show up as the employable version to our higher self is like, okay, no, this isn't it. But then this is where people get stuck. They go, oh no, my higher self does not think that I'm employable at all. And they go, I guess that's an entrepreneurship's not for me. No, if you've already felt the call to entrepreneurship, I think that's sufficient, actually. The difference is have you become the person that your higher self will hire? And if you haven't, oh my God, did I just cut out? Can you hear me? We can't see you. Okay, but what is happening? One second, everyone. Okay, you can see me now. Oh, I hate this camera, though. I hate it. Give me 2 seconds. Well, don't worry. Don't worry, I'm coming back. Fucking hate this camera. Fuck it. It's just how she goes, I guess. Shit. Enable camera. Oh, this is so dumb. Anyways, okay, hi. Hi, you're back. Okay. This is what it is. Okay. Yeah, I'm on a different camera now. Shit. Okay. Anyways, it's lesser quality, but it is what it is. Okay. So, my thought process on this one. Your higher self wants you to be successful more than anything. And it doesn't actually care what that success looks like. Now, it might have a path, it might have an idea, it might have a concept of like, you know what? Entrepreneurship's for us. And all it is waiting for you to step into that. To step into the version of you that is going to encompass everything that you need to be able to sustain you. But if you are constantly showing up as the employee that you have been with employers, your higher self is going to be like, ugh, you still haven't learned. This is why people can walk into the same employment over and over and over again, and they turn around and they're like, oh, all of these cis white men doing these things. And then they wonder why they keep having the same experience over and over again. It's because there's a lesson you haven't learned. And your higher self, if you are meant for entrepreneurship, needs you to learn that bloody lesson. Because if you don't, then there's going to be certain skills that you are lacking and unable to fulfill on if the day comes that you are reliant on you to create your money. Like, so after I left the financial controller role and I stepped into accidental entrepreneurship, I didn't have the skills I needed to really sustain that. My higher self hired me because I had a great resume, I had a great mindset, I had all of these things. But then at the end of the day, I practically didn't have boundaries. I practically got scared of asking people for money. I practically did not show up for the job my higher self hired me to do. My higher self had to let me go. Not forever. So I closed down my business and I went back to being an employee for somebody else. And I went in and I also wasn't really the ideal employee for the external world now. Because I had things like boundaries, which the external world doesn't care about, right? To be employable in the external world means you have to be boundaryless, which was when I was self-employed, which is what I was before that when I was employed by somebody else. So all of that was about learning the lesson of how to have boundaries with my clients, how to take money, how to value money in my business, how to value serving clients, how to show up in a way that would allow me to serve clients and not die simultaneously. So here's the thing. You're not going to lose the patterns that keep you unemployable for your higher self unless you actually go look at how you show up or have showed up with your employers. Are you the one who complains all the time because you have a client meeting? Well, when you're self-employed, that is on you. Are you the one who is like, yeah, I don't really care about how much money we've spent to service this client. I don't really care about how much time I'm using. I don't really care if I work 14-hour days. I don't care if I'm not really doing my job, but I'm just kind of dicking around. If you're doing all of that, then your higher self is going to be like, she's going to waste our time. She's going to force us to work 14-hour days when we only needed to work 3 that day. oh, she's wasting our money because she's buying all this software that we don't need and buying all these gadgets that we don't need when we just needed like the basics right now. Your higher self is truly the best CEO for your self-employed business. But when you are not allowing yourself to really assess if you're showing up for that job or not, then you are going to be constantly in this like fantastical looming space, feeling bad about yourself and being like, oh, well, I guess it's not for me. It's not for me. But it is for you. You just have to be willing to look, and you can't see if you don't look. You can't see the opportunities that are available for you. You can't see the growth that is available to you if you don't look. And so this is an assignment that I give in bank because, and I call it the work bitch, which is basically an audit of like all the employment you've ever had and the stories you have about it and the drama you have about it, and starting to pinpoint all the ways that you get in your own way, whether or not you're seeking another job or seeking self-employment. Because if you don't get clear on what kind of employee you are, you're not going to understand why your higher self won't hire you. Is this making sense? Let me know. Like I said, this is a whole new layout for live streaming for me right now. So like, I'm still learning here. So, you know, after I typed that out this morning, and I'm going to read it out again for those of you who didn't get a chance to read it, but let's see here. Your higher self knows all the shit you're running right now. Why would highest you employ you when you are resentful of every boss you've ever had? Show up entitled to a raise without serving anything. Don't do the job you've chosen to take on. Are horrified by making a sale, taking money, and creating contracts. Constantly crossing your own boundaries and letting clients step all over you and the business. I could go on forever. So part of the reason why I gave those specific examples was because that was part of my own stuff, right? Like I carried so much resentment for a couple of my old bosses that my higher self is like, I don't really want to put this pressure on her to be the sole breadwinner of this business if she's just going to resent me later. And so many people resent their higher selves. Oh my God, but what do you mean I'm here to change the world? What is that going to be like? Fuck this game. And then they end up spending their entire lives just like fighting their own potential and not realizing that it's there for a reason. Your higher self is like, I don't want you to resent me for putting you on this mission that we are here to have. So if you don't want the higher game, then you have to be okay with where you are, but you're not okay with where you are. So you got to figure it out. No one's telling you you have to up level. But if you see the opportunity there and you're choosing not to, then you got to own the choice that you're making. Showing up entitled to a raise without serving anything. I see this one's actually a really funny one that I had because in the startup space, there's this idea, there's like this weird relationship to time equals effort, which is not true. And so there's like a badge of honor that comes with working 14-hour days. And so I would work these 14-hour days because that's what was applauded. But like half of that day would be like make work. It was just me like dicking around with reports and like creating stuff that like didn't really impact anything, like really didn't change anything, that didn't bring the company further. Right. And this happens in all departments, not just like accounting, but like marketing. They'll create a bunch of stuff that doesn't really get new clients. And then in the startup space, it's like, oh, whatever, it's just trial and error. It's A and B testing, which is fine. But like when it comes to your higher self, there's got to be a lot more discernment. Like, well, what is it that I'm doing every day? And how much of this is totally not fruitful? How much of it is genuinely a waste of time because it's not serving anything? Like I could sit here, honestly, and I could create money memes all day long, and none of them bring me clients. Because making money memes doesn't teach people reverence and responsibility for their innate wealth. Doesn't. I mean, they're funny, but they're like, they don't do anything. They don't serve the frequency. Now, if I'm really serving you, I'm going to get online and I'm going to tell you that you need to get really clear that your higher self is here for a certain path and you're either going to choose it or not. Now, this is a lot more valuable whether or not you actually become a client because it's serving. This is serving. Reverence and responsibility. That's what this is serving. Now, when I turn to my higher self and I'm like, I need to make more money, my higher self is going to be like, yep. You need to serve reverence and responsibility. And you don't just do that by getting on a live stream. You do that by like saying, hey, why don't you join Bank? Why don't you join Enchantment? Why don't you apply to Supple? Why don't you join me one-on-one? Because here's the other thing that I realized about my own bullshit around self-employment and being my own boss and being my own employee was over the last year, have you guys seen me share a lot of links? Not really. Like, I might say, hey, come join Bank, but like, I don't really make it easy. I was looking at a couple of girlfriends and I was like looking in their stories. I was like, every day there's a story that has a link to one of their offers. I was like, no wonder she's making mad money. Every day there was just like, she's serving the frequency and then inviting people to pay her, serving the frequency, inviting people to pay her. And I was like, oh, no shit. So how can I be entitled to an outcome like a raise from my higher self when I'm not even bringing in clients? I'm not inviting them into the journey. Yeah, you can serve all day long, but it's like, it's kind of the equivalent of a nun saying, I need a raise. Like she's serving, but she's not, it's not the same. It's living in a fucking weird ass, unrealistic world. Because that's the thing about entitlement is it is entirely a fantasy-based pattern. It's entitled to a reality that you did not create. Right? Think of it like your Karens out there. Your Karens are ones who are like, I am entitled to a reality that is not actually available here. So me being entitled to a raise for my higher self that's not available because I didn't share links for people to join working with me kind of sounds insane, right? One of the other reasons you don't do the job that you've chosen to take on. This is a hard one because people don't realize that every form of employment is a choice. You can choose between working at McDonald's. You can choose between becoming a janitor. You choose between being a janitor or becoming a professor. You can do literally anything, and all of it is a choice. And so the moment that you come into this place of like, I don't have choice about my employment, is your higher self is already be like, oh, wow. She already feels bound. She already feels bound to jobs that she chose. So imagine her stepping into self-employment, being like, I didn't choose this. Being totally victimized by the body of work that wants to move through her. Guys, that's how I was with Bank. I didn't want to serve Bank. There was no part of me that wanted to do that. I was like resentful and mad. And I was like, I don't want to teach money. I don't want to teach finance. I don't want to do any of that. But then it's like, or I can just accept that I chose to take on self-employment. That's the journey I'm on. And if I choose this, then I serve this. That means I do the job that I came to do. I get on the calls with clients. I offer like coaching calls. I give them the strokes. I get uncomfortable with clients. I serve reverence and responsibility in them. Imagine my higher self is like, bitch, we hired you to serve reverence and responsibility, and you are serving insanity. You are serving victimhood. You are serving whatever. What if I stop serving reverence and responsibility in Bank? And you know, there's some of you that are in Bank and watching this. Like, imagine if I just stopped serving reverence and responsibility inside the container. What would happen? I mean, most of you guys would leave. And then my higher self would be like, you're not doing the job you came to do, that we hired you to do. We hired you to serve this frequency. Why aren't you doing that? Horrified to make a sale, take payment, make contracts. Man, that's just administrative shit, right? Is my higher self willing to hire me to take payment? No. Why? I don't know how to do that. Okay. So that's why you're not becoming an employee, like self-employed, is because you're not willing to learn. Like, well, how do I take money? how do I issue a contract? Go find that out. Your higher self doesn't want to hire you because you're unwilling to learn. You're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Okay. YouTube, Google for free. Oh, you have a friend that does it. Oh, great. Ask them. Be like, hey, you mind? Like, do you mind showing me how to do this thing? One of the funny things is like, I remember when I first started taking payment, that was like one of the first things that I wanted to make sure I understood. But even in the process of not understanding it completely, like that doesn't get in the way. It's just being like, hey, working me with X is X amount of dollars. I'm still figuring out Stripe, so just give me a couple moments. There was a number of times when I was transitioning from Wave apps over to Stripe where like I would be on a call with somebody and just say, like, can you give me a couple seconds? I'm still learning the software. And guess what? The client doesn't care. They're being served whatever frequency you bring. So like for those who are coming into bank, it's like they're being served reverence and responsibility. They're seeing that me being reverent of their money, not trying to overcharge them, and me being responsible of making sure they're charged on the right day, the right amount, whatever. They're seeing it in action through me. In enchantment, service to harmony and radiance. So even in the process of me learning things that I was not skilled at before, there's this beauty of like, radiance is slow. Harmony is an internal rightness. As long as I'm serving those things, my higher self is like, yeah, cool, she's learning. She's learning on the job. And we're still going to keep her. But my unwillingness to learn Stripe, my unwillingness to give contracts, my unwillingness to uphold contracts, uphold payments, that makes my higher self go, well, bruh, this isn't kosher. We need to be able to sustain our lives. This isn't the plan. Like, your higher self, when they're creating a business, is not to have you be homeless. Your higher self in creating a business is to have you thrive so that you can create more, so that you can give back. And in that process of giving back, you inspire others to create more and give back. And like, it's an exponential growth process. I grow, you grow. You grow, they grow. They grow, I grow. You grow. We all grow. Yeah? Let's look at the other thing that I outed myself on. Constantly crossing your own boundaries and letting clients step all over you and the business. So this one was a really funny one because in the accidental business that I made, the unaligned business, the business that served me for a time, I really had to learn this one. This was actually the experience that led to me finally accepting that I needed to serve reverence and responsibility inside of bank. And I'll never forget it. So I had was closing down my business and I realized that like scopes of my projects were being overwalked, that I would deliver on the things that I'd say I deliver on and they just wanted infinite revisions. And I was like, I'm no longer available for that. I'm going to piss some people off here. And one client in particular, I had been explicit and I said, to work with me, I require a 50% deposit and that is non-refundable. And they were like, oh, why is that? I was like, because from the moment that you sign, I commit to working with you and I commit to not working with anyone else. And so even if we get started in 3 weeks, that means that any projects I take on from now until then can only be 3 weeks long. Because you are booked. I was only working with one client at a time during that time. So I was like, I expect 50% upfront. And this person was like, totally understand. I'm self-employed as well. This totally makes sense. I love that boundary. And then they did a chargeback. And I was like, excuse me. So I was livid. And this was part of this was just before I closed down my business anyways, but I was so angry. I was like, I was explicit. It's in the contract. And I made sure that you signed that part of the contract. Like you literally had to read it. We had a verbal agreement. Like, what is this? And I ended up taking it to small claims court, to which they replied and they're like, wait a minute, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to uphold this contract because I can't have you just like pushing scope on things and then decide that you're not going to pay me when I've been denying other clients because of this expectation that you paid for. Like you literally paid for my time to be set aside for you. Like that just doesn't work for you now to take it away. Cause like, what am I going to do here? Now that was like a 2.5 month debacle. But what I realized was this was someone who didn't respect their money and they were just paying me to pay me and hopefully that I would solve their problems. Right. But this was also someone who didn't respect time because they thought that they could pay me, push the project away, and have their money back. So there was like just a lack of reverence for every resource possible that existed between us. And for me to actually have a boundary of being like, how much disrespect was I going to allow for my time and my energy and my money? How much disrespect was I actually going to allow? Now, I think we ended up settling out of court, like not the full deposit, but like a percentage. And that was fine because for me, it was just more of the practice of backing and not letting people walk all over me. Because at that point I had clients who just like, I had a client who paid me in full and then ghosted me for 6 months. And I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? Because it created this like heavy weight on top of me that like I couldn't do anything unless this client came back. Like if they went dead, I can't really serve the client. But then simultaneously at the same time, it was like, but what if they come back tomorrow when I'm already working with somebody else? Like I had just been learning all of these things. Now, all of that could have also been learned as an employee. When I wasn't at the cause of my paycheck, I could have learned contract negotiations. I could have learned boundaries. I could have had all of those learnings already take place on someone else's dime before I became responsible for it. But the thing that I want to point out here is that like if you are on the path of entrepreneurship in any form, being self-employed means that your higher self has to say you're worth employing. And you can only be worth employing if what you are practicing aligns with what your higher self values. This is where you have to separate it between employability out in the world and employability to your higher self. What does your higher self consider employable? My higher self considers employable that I get on every day and I'm serving whatever frequency I'm supposed to be serving. And every time I do, my pay goes up. I get a bonus. My higher self is like, yeah, bitch, go take yourself to the spa. Every time. When I get on and I serve reverence and responsibility through bank, that's what happens. When I get on and I serve harmony and radiance through enchantment, that's what happens. When I come on and I serve the opening of supple, that's what happens. My higher self is like, thank you for showing up for the work that you were hired to do. Thank you for ensuring that this business continues. Thank you for being the accountant. Thank you for being the advertiser. Thank you for being the sales guy. Thank you for being the operations team. All of that exists through me because I am self-employed. Now, there may come a day where I have someone who also do my bookkeeping. At that point, my higher self is still going to say, is this person employable for this business? They're not going to be employable in the context of like, oh, hey, you need to push profits. That person's not employable by my higher self because my higher self only cares that we meet my living costs, that we meet my level of charitable contributions, that we meet the level of living costs for anyone that I hire. That's all my higher self cares about. Profits are not a crazy big deal to her because we want to live on profit. That's her vision. So she's not going to hire the bookkeeper who replaces me because now my job as the teacher becomes more significant because I keep serving. When you first become self-employed, you are everything for the whole business. And often people want to be like, oh no, I hire somebody else to do that. I hire somebody else to do that. It's like, well, if you do that, that's fine. but watch you need to pull back later on. It happens every single time. In fact, I was talking to somebody at the dog park today he's the founder of like a crypto messaging platform or something. Anyways, he's gone through like multi-million-dollar investment rounds. And we were talking. And one of the things that we spoke about was how some of these really big startups will go through a rapid hire. And then they have within months to like extent maybe a year or two, they'll go through what we call the great layoff. So for example, Shopify laid off like 300 people. A company I used to work for had a reduction in force. Another company I worked for had a massive reduction in force. It's what happens when you have a rapid hire. Almost every time, I have yet to see a company that doesn't do this, has a rapid layoff. It's because they were trying to add more before it was needed. Do you understand your business enough to be able to do all of the things and know when it's time to give up something? For me, I still do all of the things because it's not time to give up anything yet. I can still balance it all and not retract from any part of my life. Like I spend most of my days doing absolutely nothing. But my accounting's done. Well, this month's accounting is not done. But like, everything's pretty much up to date. I have no outstanding invoices I need to follow up on. All my bills are paid. My clients are working. Like all of this stuff that's happening is still happening. But it's because I am choosing to show up as employable for my higher self every time. My higher self has so many standards and requirements of my embodiment. I can't just show up like the slacker, high, like Jay and Silent Bomb to like work. My higher self is really, what the fuck are you doing? Right? I can't show up late to a client call and not think that that's going to not impact my business. I can't show up entitled and not think that that's not going to impact my business. But all of the patterns that you have as an employee in the external world will 100% transfer over to you being your own employee if you don't clear it. If you don't get clear on how you've been showing up. Because listen, it doesn't even mean if it's good, bad, ugly, sad. What's employable into the external world, one of the patterns that I have is to work really hard. But guess what? To my higher self, that is not an employable quality. To overwork myself? No, because again, she's balancing everything else. She goes, okay, well, if she brings the pattern of 14-hour work days here, that means that we're not going to eat. We're not going to go to the gym. We're not going to sleep well. Like I'm looking at all the things she's willing to do over there. And like that cannot exist over here. You guys see the difference? Your higher self has a particular kind of employability than the external world. So by assessing what patterns did you have overworking, when we're trying to stay in the external world, we just present that as like, I'm a hard worker, but it's like, actually, I sacrifice my boundaries. I sacrifice my health and sanity for the job. And then my higher self is like, I don't need you sacrificing anything, actually. So I can't hire you until you learn to not do that. Now you might have a higher self that's like, nah, we're going to take the risk. You're going to learn that in real time. And if you got one of those higher selves, fucking all the power to you. But you still have to clear it. You still have to clear it. And the number of times that I see people being like, oh, I want to become an entrepreneur, but they refuse to look at how their higher selves just won't hire them. Like, oh, I want to be self-employed. It's like, yeah, but why isn't your higher self hiring you then? Oh, we don't know what we're building. Your higher self does know what she's building. 100% she knows what she's building. So why aren't they hiring you? Oh, well, because I don't have the right marketing. No, that's not it. Why aren't they hiring you? And the only way you're going to have an answer to that question is if you look at why you would not hire you if you were going to live from a place of deeper alignment. And that's truly what's going to get in the way of you making money anyways, right? As long as I was running this idea that the clients could and would and were allowed to push the statement, like the timeline on the project, the scope of work, as long as I was allowing that to continue happening, my higher self was like, oh no, we can't do this. We can't hire her to run client work. As long as I was willing to work 14-hour days and not have boundaries and take care of my rest and my health and my food, my higher self would be like, oh no, we'll be dead in 2 years if we hire her. As long as I was feeling entitled to more money, but not willing to actually show up in service, my higher self is going to be like, this bitch is a lunatic. The delusion on this one. You checking that out? Because it is. It's delusional. And not those really like cool delusions people are saying on TikTok nowadays, but like it's just purely delusional. How can you be entitled to more money when you're not serving anything? You're entitled to like a certain level of treatment, sure. This is a conversation that's going to be a little bit more nuanced, but like I really want you to sit with, if you have been like, I want to be self-employed, you have to get clear about what things do you need to be embodying that your higher self is going to hire you for. If you are terrified to look at your finances, your higher self is not going to hire you as a CFO. If you are terrified to get on a call with the client and take down their credit card information, your higher self is going to be like, we can't have her in sales. If you can't get on and like write your contracts and make your business function, your higher self is going to be like, I don't know about this. Feels like it's going to cost us more in the long run. And because it is going to cost more in the long run, right? It's going to cost their sanity. It's going to cost your place to live. It's going to cost a lot. Like my first business, my higher self hired me on the pretense that me knowing money was enough. Not realizing that when serving the clients, was going to be walked all over. That's when she decided she needed to fire me, and I needed to go learn that lesson first. Getting fired from your self-employment job is not a bad thing. It's an opportunity for reassessment. And what I mean by being fired from being a self-employed person is like, you kind of have to look at it that way. What lessons do I need to learn to be rehired? This makes sense? I'm going to read some of these comments. Feel like I'm on church on a Monday. Yeah. I can see where I stop serving and it affects everything. Yeah. And listen, like, I want to say this is me every day, where like the days that I get resentful of like the path that I'm on. It's one of those questions of like, what does my higher self need from me? And eventually those two, they like you that you are becomes your highest self, because you're going to be in such close relationship that you can just think on as your higher self. And you're like, wait, my higher self actually needs me to nap. My higher self needs me to eat. My higher self needs me to like actually serve this medicine. My higher self needs to give this stroke. My higher self is going to come in and be this form of a teacher, is going to be this form of an accountant, is going to be this, you know, the bookie, the gangster to collect money, whatever it is. Like our higher selves, you have to trust in yourself to be able to do all things. And then the places that you can't, trust that you have the capacity to learn them. But as long as you've got the patterns running around that unchecked, because in the external world, they don't care. They will never tell you that they're never going to tell you, hey, you're entitled to a raise that you don't deserve. They're never going to say that. They're going to say like, oh, well, actually, we need you to do this, 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 and this. That's what they're going to do. Because they're not going to tell you the truth. Your higher self is going to be like, you are insane. You need to go make a sale. You need to go serve a client. You need to serve your current clients. And listen, that was a stroke for my higher self for a while, where she's like, you're not even going to focus on getting more clients. You're just going to serve the ones you got. That was it. That's all I did. For 3 months, I had no sales. I just served. Because that was a stroke. It's like, you got to get used to these little, like, I don't want to call them plateaus. I just feel like they're steps. Because in my business, how it's always been is like, I get these really consistent, beautiful, sustainable levels. But for a bit, I was getting addicted to the constant increase. And so my higher self came in and was like, no, because eventually you're not going to increase. Eventually you're going to be at the cap because that's what your life requires of you. So you have to get really comfortable with just serving and not always getting more money, but just serving and being satisfied with serving every day and satisfied that your needs are met every day. And that was the reality, is I was making enough money to cover everything I needed. Everything I needed. It's crazy. And so for 3 months, I was sick with COVID. I think I signed one client in January, but then it was like February, March, most of April. I didn't sign a damn client. I didn't even have any sales calls because all I was doing was serving and being sick. That was it. And guess what? My bills were covered. I didn't have to worry about a thing. But April came around, I got more clients. May came around, I got a couple more clients, nothing too crazy. And then June and July, did nothing. Got no clients. Right? Like, there's this place where if you are constantly in alignment with your higher self, then your business will be a reflection of that too. And the thing that I want to say here is that it also applies to you if you're not on the path of self-employment. Like, if you're just like, I hate the job I'm at and I want to get a new job, it's always killer to go look at the patterns that you brought forward from the old workplaces. Because listen, the pattern of like, I hate middle-aged white old men, that was one I could have carried. And then you know what? I would have missed out on working with some really cool people, because that's the pattern that would have carried me out. You would have said, no, we're not applying there. Because these belief systems kind of dictate what we allow ourselves to show up for, right? So even if you're like, I just hate the job that I have right now, then do an inquiry. Like, what did I bring forward from these old jobs? What did I learn in a way that's still contributing to me? Because like what I learned as a financial controller was that money was really important and I needed to value my money. But I also learned like practical skills, like how to pay bills internationally and like how to do taxes internationally. I learned some practical stuff, but like, what did I learn that is still actively contributing to me every day? When I was working at the auto group, it was, I automated a lot of my roles. So I was like, oh, that like I could work smarter, not harder. That I don't have to work so hard all the time. I could actually just like streamline a lot of stuff, simplify it. Cool. Learn that. When I went back into accounting at a firm, the lesson that I learned from that was that there were certain things that were more important to me and more important to my clients. And as long as I served the important thing to both of us, the business would still live. Like I remember getting reprimanded because I didn't meet a metric. And it was like, oh shit, I didn't meet that metric. And then I turned around and I was like, actually, I'm okay with not meeting that metric because this other client got served in a way that no one else would have been able to provide. So I'm clear on that. Then the company was like, you know what? You're right. That was a good call. Next time, let's see if we can meet all of it though. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, I can shoot for that. Right. So how is all of this landing for you guys? Let me see some of the comments under the video. Let's see here. This is exactly what I needed today. Cool. Glad to hear it. Whoops. It's me clicking on my own damn live stream. Okay, let's see what some other comments are. This resonates on many levels. I've been self-employed for 20 years and I had someone outright ask me why I believed I could own my own antique store. It's more important to why I ask one believes that they cannot. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that, like, that's totally what I mean, right? Like your higher self, your higher self isn't saying that you shouldn't. It's saying like, this is why I'm not hiring you. as in like, go work on this. Like, I'm not hiring you because I know that, listen, like my higher self was like, Steph, I'm not hiring you to be my anything because you have no fucking boundaries. You work until like from fucking 7 a.m. to 3 or 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. and you give up your entire weekend. You have no fun in life. And that's not a cost I'm willing to bear. And then I continued that pattern, right? And she goes, okay, well, you still don't have fucking boundaries because clearly you just worked a 14-hour day and half of that was make work. So no, I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to hire you to waste our time and our energy that are like, it's not that they're scarce, but they're fucking valuable, you know? I'm not going to hire you to do that. My higher self wasn't going to hire me until I was going to like learn how to write contracts and like I'd be willing to learn. So she was saying, you know what? If you're willing to learn how to take a credit card, we'll hire you now and you'll figure it out on the job. There's going to be stuff that your higher self is going to be like, you're going to figure it out on the job. I just need you to be willing to do it. And when they hire you to be willing to learn, you got to do it. You got to do the job you were hired to do. So when I was hired to write contracts, having never really written contracts before, I needed to do the job. Yeah. Loving this. Oh, good to see you, Jackson. Yeah. So listen, like I don't teach business, right? But I do teach what I know is the administration of business. What I know is the financials of business. And what I do know is the transition from being an employee to self-employed. I know that pretty well because I've done it twice. And I've done it in a way that like I have transitioned. I've left jobs in beautiful, immaculate relationships. And then I've left jobs in distorted and disgusting ways. Like all of those experiences contribute to me being an entrepreneur. But if I'm looking at entrepreneurship as a way to escape or save myself from being an employee, you're already fucked because you will never not be an employee. I hate to say this. You will always be an employee to somebody else or to your higher self. The difference is your higher self gives a shit. And it gives a shit about a lot more than your boss. Right? Your higher self wants you to be happy and healthy. Your higher self wants you to have fun and have love and excitement as much as it wants you to have rest and nourishment. Your higher self has holistic desires for you, but they can't hire you if they know that the way that you're going to be is going to take away from accessing any of that. Oh yes, there's so much fear of being an employee and that has softened a lot. Yeah. You're going to be your own employee. So whether or not you're seeking a job or you're seeking to really step into your entrepreneurship and let your higher self hire you as someone who is willing to learn, either way, like treat yourself as though like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a pretty fucking good employee for my higher self. I'm not employable to somebody else anymore. Like I'm just very clear. It's not a thing I'm willing to do anymore. It's not a thing that's accessible to me. There would be a lot of self-compromise. I'm not willing to do it. But for my higher self, I'm working every day to be the most employable to her. And so far, she's like, yeah, cool. It works. And every once in a while, I'll even impress myself. Be like, oh, look what I did today. Like, wow, look at me serving. Who would have thought? Look at us, you know? And this is a part of the assignment that I teach in bank, because if you don't get into a clean relationship with employment, it's going to be really hard for you to get into a clean relationship with making money. Because making money is a byproduct of your employment, whether you make it for yourself because you're employed by you, or you make it for yourself because you're employed by somebody else. The only way to make money without employment I don't think exists. Thinking even in terms of like passive income. Let's say you have passive income in the form of real estate. Well, nope, that's still a form of employment because you need to be able to make sure people pay their rent. You need to be able to coordinate staff. Because if you don't do those things, then nobody's getting paid. So no, it's not that. Okay, well, investments. Well, no, you still have to be your own employee there because you need to be able to move money around. So that's not it either. It's just the context of employee is that you're doing work. Actually, let's look it up. What is the definition of employee specifically? And I will give you the new revised definition. Employee is a person employed for wages or salary, especially at a non-executive level. If you are getting paid in any form, there is some level of employment attached. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but like so for example, I get paid from Visa because I'm an investor in Visa. So I get dividends. At one point, I was employing myself to put money into Visa. Had I not done that, I would not receive dividends. So even investing has some sort of act of doing labor to receive money. So if your relationship to employment is, I don't want to fucking work, which means is AKA, I don't want to fucking serve, then how do you expect money to come? I just don't, I can't, I would love to hear what you think. Like, are there places that employment isn't associated to income? And I'm going to probably fight you on it because I just don't see how it's happening. There's always some form of work that needs to take place. Work is another word for service, another word for labor, another word from contribution. What is it that you are doing to be paid for? I'm investing, I get paid. I'm organizing, I am paid. I am selling, I am paid. I'm working for somebody else, I am paid. I'm working for me, I am paid. You will always be paid. So if you have a distortion around employment in general, it's going to be really hard for you to get paid unless you expect the universe to pay you in lottery. Which isn't really a sustainable path. I mean, granted, I've known someone who's won the lottery twice, but that's a lot on your nervous system to try to maintain. And even then, you got to be the person who goes and buys the lottery ticket. So even if your higher self was like, we're going to win the lottery, you still got to go buy the lottery ticket. You got to be willing to do that. So how are you going to come up with the money to buy the lottery ticket? Oh, you got to work. You got to serve. You got to do something, right? Trust me when I say that your higher self, whether or not you choose the entrepreneurship route or not, it wants the best for you. But it's going to feel impossible if you're still fighting the version of you that you need to become to live that life. One of my weak spots when it comes to me being a good employee to my higher self, to being employable to my higher self is I really struggle to write and share my work and invite people in. And it's always been a place I get stuck, and it's always a place I get nervous, and it's a place that I don't feel confident. And my higher self is like, baby, we need you to be confident here. We need you to learn. We need you to do trial and error. We need you to get out there, because getting out there is the only way it's going to work. Get out there and serve. It doesn't mean it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't mean that I'm not the best person to market me right now. My higher self is like, you're going to be. You just need to learn on the job right now. You can learn on the job anything that you're doing for your self-employment, but you do have to see it as, if I'm going to learn on the job, I need to learn it. Does anyone have any questions? Things to say? Let's see. Let's see. I don't think there's any other things to address. Oh, we've got some comments. Yeah. So let me just, this is exactly what I needed. I can see everything clearly now. Great. I'm so glad. And I mean, listen, like, I didn't expect this one to hit so hard. Like, I think people really got smacked by it. And I wasn't anticipating that by any means, to be God's honest truth. Scout's honor. I wasn't a scout, but I'll take their honor. I really wasn't expecting this one to be so hard hitting. But, you know, sitting with it, it's like, yeah, if you want to become self-employed, your higher self needs to consider you employable. Like, there's a way that I firmly believe everyone could be self-employed. The way that the world is working, we're moving towards gig economy anyways, where the world's just going to be a bunch of freelancers. But what's going to get in your way of making money, of having more time, of having more energy is the fact that you won't meet the standards and requirements that your higher self needs from you. What do team meetings look like between you and HP? I assume you mean higher self. Yeah. So for me, it's usually like a form of meditation, being like, well, what's really needed today? What needs to happen today? Like, the moment that I wrote this, it's like, if you want to become self-employed to your higher self needs to consider you employable. I was sitting with it. I was like, fuck, I need to teach. Like, I need to go online and I need to talk about this. And it's going to be clunky and it's going to be messy and it's not going to be totally articulate and it's going to hit and it's going to slap and it's going to do all the things that it needs to at this stage. And, you know, in a year when I go to reteach this, it's going to go even louder and it's going to be more potent. But right now, I just have to go out and serve. That's my higher self directing me, being like, if I really back this, if I really want people to understand this, then I got to get out and do this thing. And it's trusting that, right? It's trusting that call in me to say, this is what I'm here to do. So when my higher self sees that I'm avoiding my finances, she's going to let me know. She'll be like, hey, Steph, how much money do you got in the bank? And then my response is like, oh, I've been avoiding that. And she'll be like, am I going to fire you because you're not really showing up here for the job that I hired you for to take care of our money? Nope. No. I'm going to go look at that, actually, because it's not that big of a deal. You did hire me to do the job. And there's also the beauty of seeing it, too, is like, I'm an employee to my higher self, is you can be a little kinder to you. Because, like, there is this way that when you work for somebody else, you almost don't care. Like, there's no, oh my God, I need to make this sale. It's like, oh, I'm just going to get on in a sale. And like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But when you're employed for yourself, there can be that like grippy notion to it. Like when you're self-employed, be like, oh my God, I need to make this sale. I need to do this. But when you're employee to yourself, it's like, oh, well, I just need to go serve this client. And if I make the sale, I don't. And if I do, great. You can bring more neutrality to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm going to leave you guys there. Bank is a co-ed container, so I don't just work with women in there. However, there's a lot of feminine concepts, such as things like fucking rest, which apparently men don't like to do, but it's actually required, right? And that's the thing too. It's like a lot of my career was in industry, in startup culture, which was intended to have this like holistic blend of life and work, but they bastardized it. I was working 14-hour days, friends. Like, there's no part of my higher self that is like, that is healthy. That's what we want to be doing. And so if your life is like, you know what, my higher self is like, I only want to work 1 hour a day, I can guarantee you that's not your higher self. Your higher self is way more expansive than that. And it'll say something like, I want time to raise children. Okay, great. So how do we serve whatever energy is running through you so that is still a thing? Because if you have reverence for your energy and reverence for your time, then the actions of which you embody must align. That's the thing about bank, is it's not just about money. It's about your resources. Do you have reverence for your energy and your time and your money? Because if you do, the byproduct is your wealth. But any place that you don't have reverence for all three, you won't be wealthy. And one of the ways that I explain this is like, what is the point of having all the money in the world if you have no energy and no time? What is the point of having all the time in the world if you have no energy and no money? What is the point of having all the energy in the world if you have no time or money? It's just not worth it. It's not much of a life to live, because wealth is just your ability to afford to live your most aligned life. That's what wealth is. If you can't afford to live, you're not wealthy, right? But if you have reverence for time, money, and energy, the byproduct is being wealthy, meaning you have enough of the resources you require to afford to live the life you desire. It's really that straightforward. So if bank interests you and you're like, fuck, it's time, because I know a bunch of you guys have been just hanging out in the rafters, I encourage you to apply. We'll get on a call. We'll see if it's a right journey for you, because it's not the right journey for everybody. But, it's all a practice of reverence. It's all about how deep do you respect your life and everything in it. And if you are sitting here being a resentful employee, then it's a good chance that you didn't respect where your money came from. And you're not respecting the version of you that got to learn lessons and got to learn skills and got to learn a lot that would contribute to you being hired by you. Okay. So anyways, leaving you guys there. Have a fabulous rest of your day. I would love to hear in the comments what you're leaving here with. Just something that I say on almost all of my calls. Thank you for the staying present, even though we had the glitch, the technical glitch. Yeah. Okay. Have a great day. Bye.